Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bridging Chicago podcast. My name is Joseph Amari, and I am an attorney at SATC Law. You can find the Bridging Chicago podcast at our website, bridgingchicago.com, and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, where our handle is @BridgingChicago. Today, I'm incredibly grateful to be joined by Robert Finkel, Rootmaster and CEO of Forbidden Root Brewery, as well as founder and managing partner of Prism Capital. Robert, we are so glad to have you on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Robert, are you originally from Chicago?
I'm actually from New York originally. I grew up in New York City and been here about 30 years. So I consider myself a Chicagoan.
Okay, great. So big city to big city.
Exactly.
Awesome. And so a little bit about your background. You did your undergraduate at Johns Hopkins?
I was at Johns Hopkins, a very serious but great university, and studied social and behavioral sciences there, knowing that I was going to go to business school.
Okay.
Had a great time in Baltimore and enjoyed the Chesapeake crabs and local beer, and then went to New York for a couple years to work, and then came out of business school, 2 years later.
Okay. And so you went to Harvard Business School full time?
I did.
That's awesome.
I did.
So after that point, was that when you got the idea for Prism Capital?
No, I was actually recruited to a venture capital firm called Winpoint Partners, which back then was backed by the Johnson Wax family, and cut my teeth on venture deals and growth deals and some buyouts. And it was, there were eight venture firms in Illinois at that point. Now they're well over 100. And so it was very different in those days, and got great training and sitting on boards and evaluating companies and management. And it was maybe 7 years after I joined that I formed Prism Capital.
Okay. And so what was the process leading into forming your own company?
Well, I at a certain point when you learn the skill set, and the experience curve in venture is actually rather long. There are a lot of things to do, and you got to live through cycles. But at a certain point, you sort of get the basics and the rhythm, and then it's a matter of confidence meets foolishness to think you can do it yourself. Was doing deal by deal for a little while, and then formed a group and raised a fund, and then raised another fund.
Okay. And so at that point, you thought, all right, I've seen a lot of the background. It's time for me to venture off. No pun intended.
Yeah. At a certain point, you want to do things your way, and you think you have a unique or distinct vantage point on things, and we did it Prism and did it successfully.
And you also wrote a book as well about private equity.
I did. I felt like there's a lot to learn in the apprentice mentor relationship. That's the sort of the way that you cut your teeth and you grow. There's no manual. There's nothing. There was little to read on what made a good investor, and given it was just handed down by carrying people's briefcases and being around them and watching them and soaking up the experience, you really I was worried that some of these original characters, their institutional knowledge would be lost if it weren't captured. So I felt like a historian that didn't want these valuable learnings lost to the ages, and I wanted to try to put them in a codex, and that was really what drove me to write the book.
That's an interesting idea of taking like a historian's approach to taking this information and putting it as a resource for future individuals that want to get involved.
That's exactly what I did, and I partnered with a great writer in David Greising, and we sort of mapped out chunks of learnings, and had one of the greats talk about that so they could focus on a subject, and hopefully it's been helpful.
And so I noticed earlier you mentioned the great beer in Baltimore. Is that how you got involved in the brewery scene?
No, I had been a fan, and I'm a foodie, so I like tasting different things wherever I am. But it was really a junior partner back then named John Hosley who came up with the idea of doing a beer tasting, and I put myself on the beer tasting subcommittee. And so, in advance of this event, we'd select 12 or 14 different beers. And this is like 18 years ago when craft beer was still getting its legs in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And we were turning people on to craft beer for the first time every year, and we had 300 people every year joining us. That's how I really got exposed to craft beer.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's exploded. The amount of breweries and the craft beer scene has really taken off. I've noticed in the city, in the suburbs, everywhere you look, which is really an awesome thing. It's a great experience. Now, I think you created an annual tradition called Novemberfest. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's what we did at Prism, introducing different kinds of craft beer to the financial, industry, and turning people on to new things is something I've always enjoyed, and that was no exception.
It sounds like the event was well received.
It was. I mean, literally, people, as soon as they got in, they collected their glass, and they collected the glasses for, 6 years that we did it. And it was packed every year.
And so was this the point where you thought, all right, I've made my mark in venture capital, it's time to expand my horizons?
Oh, I don't know whether I made my mark, but we certainly had a successful run and enjoyed writing the book, and that was kind of a swan song for me. In that, I really, I didn't want my tombstone reading, "Here lay a great asset manager," and that's what the business has turned into. It's an asset management business more than it ever was, at least when I did it, and that's not why I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an idea for a root beer. And what did it taste like? What did it look like? What did it smell like? In Dodge City in 1890, when the barkeep slid the sarsaparilla glass to you, what was that experience like? And that sort of lodged in my head for a couple of years before I said, I want to see what this is like. And so I pursued that development with a guy named Randy Mosier, who really was, he's the best-selling author in the world globally. A couple 100,000 copies of his tasting beer books have been published, I think, in 26 languages. And so I partnered with him initially. He consulted, and then became a partner, and we developed this product, which took us, about 16 months. Just on this one product path, and then we decided, with some other formulations, this is a bigger idea and a company, and that's when Forbidden Root was born.
Okay, and so after you had gone through the process of probably experimentation with different flavors, and you had your product, what did you do then?
So we scaled up recipes so they could go into production versus just tabletop testing, and concluded pretty quickly that you needed a physical venue, a manifestation of the brand, if you will, to showcase what you're doing, and that's when we found the Chicago Avenue, former movie theater, and built a brewery in there, and built out a restaurant, and so people could come in and see what we meant by botanically inspired beer, and an innovative, edgy food that was approachable yet different. And so that was really the next order of operations, and we opened that up almost 7 years ago at this point.
When you say botanically inspired beer, could you elaborate a little bit more about what that means?
Sure. And by the way, hops are botanic. Botanic is a plant, stem, fruit, leaf, flower. It's all the organic elements that we use, honey, to create flavors. And so there's a history of 10,000 years at least of brewing, and the first 9,200 of those are without hops.
Mm.
Hops really came in 800, 900 years ago. We think in the Czech Republic, and before that, it was actually women who were brewing and foraging locally, whether in Latin America or North America or Europe or in Asia, just looking for ingredients that were local and making a brew. So there's a long tradition of using all kinds of ingredients to come up with a delicious beer.
Mm-hmm. And so does that pose any unique challenges because you're avoiding using hops? Or maybe not avoiding, but
we don't avoid using hops at all. We love hops. Hops is a botanic. We have a line of hazy IPAs that we've been brewing for 4 years now, and we were early in that effort. So no, we love hops, and hops that are in all our beer. They we harmonize with them with other ingredients, sometimes and sometimes not.
I see.
It gives us more of a palate, not less. It doesn't constrict us; it expands our horizons.
So perhaps the goal is to seek out new flavors in addition and see how you can combine and create something even greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into a business, like craft beer, I need to feel as if we're adding something, we're contributing something, and that means something better or different. Mm-hmm. And so we constantly look at whether it's a style or a style with a twist. Our number one seller is a strawberry basil hefeweizen. And strawberry is a very difficult fruit flavor to get into beer. I won't go into all the chemistry of it, but it took us over a year to sort of dial in that flavor the way we wanted to present it. I think people are appreciating that.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds delicious. You said strawberry basil?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like you have quite a palate. Have you always been very inclined for different flavors? And you said you were a foodie earlier.
Foodie since birth. So I've always been interested in food and flavor and experiences. Really anybody who's in our team, they are passionate about passing on and delivering an experience that somebody might not have had, but without with something that's approachable, so something that can be understood, but yet is the walk out saying, "Wow, I hadn't had that before." Mm-hmm. In that way.
And you also have a bit of background with nutritional literacy. Is that correct?
Well, I was dabbling in, trying to create a nonprofit in the wellness area, because there's a load of misinformation out there in terms of dietary supplements and those things, and was on the cusp of doing that until I saw that Forbidden Root would be, a even more enjoyable path for me personally. And so at some point I may help others, on that path, but I'm focused on Forbidden Root.
I see. And so with the beer, you also have a kitchen as well at Forbidden Root.
Well, we have 3 locations in Chicago Avenue, and now Ravenswood, the old Band of Bohemia, and in Columbus in the Easton Shopping Mall. We have a brewery in each of those locations and a kitchen in each of those locations. So they're full brewery restaurants.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, the chef wants the food to be as interesting as the beer, and the brewers want the beer to be as interesting as the food. So, we do beer dinners where we, pair beer with food, and they have a good time.
So what are some of your favorite items on the menu?
Oh boy, each location, has its own approach. We have, our newest Cultivate is constantly innovating, and they have some great veg dishes because it's they even more vegan and vegetable, and they've got a broccolini dish which is delicious, and a big bread, and all kinds of things. But we still have our forbidden root burger, which is considered by some to be among the better in Chicago. We made a bunch of lists there, and in Ohio we have a delicious chicken sandwich, and the chef there is constantly innovating different dishes. We have a duck and dumplings at several of our locations, which is a signature dish, and we try to make things that, while approachable, or something that you haven't had before, or with a twist.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you have found incredible success in your path to this point. What would you say was the biggest obstacle that you faced when you were going through this process?
Of creating Forbidden Root.
Yeah.
In the venture institutional investment world, you are backing great CEOs. You're on their board. You're trying to share lessons with other companies and with other business cycles that the CEO and team may not have thought fully out, or brainstorm with them, or be a partner. But rolling up your sleeves and opening up a restaurant, and rolling out a menu, and coming up with beers is a whole different animal.
Mm-hmm.
You're not writing slide decks and grenade tossing every quarter, sharing some thoughts and then leaving and coming back a quarter later. It's every day, and the people involved are looking for leadership and guidance, and so you're really trying to find people who are culturally aligned with a passionate view of experience, and creating those dishes and beers that will be memorable, and more than just putting food on your plate and a beer in your glass. So I think that that hands-on approach is very different when you're operating versus on somebody's board.
Absolutely. I imagine that in that you learned a lot about not only the industry, but probably a lot about yourself, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I learned that I like being with people, and that I like being with like-minded, passionate souls who, are artists in part themselves, and trying to, conduct a band and let everybody, individually, highlight their skills and abilities and passions, and yet with a unified composition is really it's very gratifying.
Absolutely. And you mentioned passion. I think that's so important. When you go into something with passion, it doesn't feel like work, at least in my experience. When I'm passionate, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I get to do this, and I'm excited to do this, and that's a reward in itself.
Totally. And we've tried to pick people who from the hosts and servers, who write the beer boards and design them, and are passionate about it, and those things make a difference, and people feel that. And so we're very attuned to getting people like that in to enhance and propel our culture.
Absolutely. And so your most recent opening was Cultivate in Ravenswood. Is that correct?
Yes.
When did you guys open?
We opened late November of last year. and it had good bones, but we wanted to take it to the next level, both fine tuning the brewing capability and building out some more equipment and adding a foeder, which is a big wood tank that allows us to do lagers and fruited lagers, because we have a metal bottom that allows us to do that. It was a big kitchen build out, and so we made some refinements and built out a beautiful space that people would understand this is forbidden root and something a little different than it was, and we're very proud of what we've done.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you found incredible success in all these ventures. So, shifting away from it, what are some of the things that you like to do on your own personal time? I can see you have a couple of guitars in the background.
I haven't played in a while, but like a lot of things, peaked at age 16, and I like to download music that I like and reverse engineer it and play all the instruments along the way, and then create my own karaoke and I sing to that, and so I create my own a set of songs. I think I've done about 75 of them so far.
Okay.
I love playing table tennis, and so we had a play the Root Master. We actually did 2 nights of that, and that was a lot of fun. They had to take me with a spatula off the floor after I played 30 matches, and that was a lot of fun. And so those are two things that I enjoy in the off time from Forbidden Root.
Sounds like you have a kind of a predilection for creativity in the arts.
I actually, you're either artist or audience, and in many senses I'm audience because I can draw strict stick figures, but I appreciate artists who have formed that connection between their mind and their hand far better than me. But I love beautiful things, and if I can be involved in either appreciating or creating them, all the better.
Does that apply to, when you set up the interior of a restaurant? I imagine you probably have a kind of an idea in mind of how you want the ambiance to be for the patron.
Oh, for sure. I'm involved in every square inch. Was privileged to work with the great Jordan Moser, and did some really wonderful design for Cultivate. We took these large olive buckets that I found in a small village in France. We imported, I think, 45 of them. And he designed light fixtures, 5 of them. They're huge, they're massive, and throw off some really cool light between the edges of it and then down. And so we did some unique things in both the tap room, which is separate, which is meant to have a casual beer, play some games with your friends. We'll occasionally close for a private event, and then the main dining space. It's something to see. We want it to be visually interesting and welcoming, and that feeling of that Scandinavian word hygge, which is welcoming, like sort of an après ski. You just feel very comfortable and warm there, and able to hang out with your friends. Cultivate has 0 TVs. So it's really meant to, you go with your friends or family to enjoy them, and that's the content. And we believe in that connection.
I think that's a really nice touch. I think that sometimes disconnecting and really focusing on the people you're with can really deepen an experience.
Totally.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. For our listeners, Cultivate is in Ravenswood at 4710 North Ravenswood Avenue. Robert, do you have anything you want to leave our guests with?
No, we're in the experience business, so we want to turn people on to new things and with familiar ingredients, yet with a twist. And my hope is that when you walk in to either Cultivate or OG Forbidden Root on Chicago Avenue, you're seeing things on the menu that are familiar but with a twist. And we're constantly adding maybe 2 new beers a week. And so every time you come in, you'll see an unusual beer board. And if you want just a regular old beer, they'll be there. But if you want something interesting, whether it's strawberry basil Hefeweizen or a hazy IPA or a sour blackberry vanilla beer, we've got that for you too. So we're excited to have people come in and try us and hang out and enjoy each other.
Absolutely. I'm excited to try the strawberry basil beer. I've been thinking about it the whole time. It sounds so good.
Come on down.
Do you have any social medias that our listeners might be able to connect with?
Sure. There's we're on Instagram, Facebook. You can see our images. Our products are sort of lend themselves to the visuals, so you can certainly get a good sense of who we are and what we do at Forbidden Root or on Facebook.
All right. Well, Robert, thank you so much. I had a wonderful time talking with you, and I hope you take care.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of SATC Solution Center, SATC Law, or any of its employees. This podcast is created by the hosts and guests' individual capacities. All opinions on this podcast are or have been rendered based on specific facts, under certain conditions, and are subject to certain assumptions and may not and should not be used or relied upon for any other purpose, including but not limited to, or use in or in connection with any investment purposes or legal proceeding.